Welcome to Hitting for the Cycle, episode 16 on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. That's Ryan Touhey. That's Nick DiMartino. I'm Nick Morgasen. Yes, there's a normal person that's not here this week, and I'm not used to this because Hank Addictor usually does every episode, but we will get through this week. Before we get into that, make sure you follow the show on social media at HFTC ETB on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network. X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Network. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/ETB Network for all our other shows, including this one and many others. Make sure you follow us on our website, etbpodcast.com, for a bunch of blogs and full other information as well. Guys, it's been an interesting week in the world of Major League Baseball. The playoffs are in full form. Obviously, we're in the ALCS and the NLCS. How you guys doing today?
Doing all right. Thank you for having us on today.
Well, I'm having a better morning than the Diamondbacks, so
that's not saying much. We'll get right into it. So, ALCS, NLCS takeaways so far. Ryan, which series you want to start with?
Let's do the ALCS first.
All right. So the Battle of Texas, and there's not really much of a battle. The Rangers have really, what would you say, blown it away offensively so far?
I'm going to say blown it away offensively. They've pitched very well, though. I mean, Jordan Montgomery outpitched Justin Verlander in Game 1, and he was terrific. He definitely showed that he is capable of pitching on the big stage, and he definitely made Yordan Alvarez look bad that day, too. And,
yeah.
He definitely showed that if you let your facial hair grow, good things will happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those series where you're expecting more out of Houston, and Houston kind of just fell flat. Nick, what do you think of that series so far?
Well, my gut tells me it's over. Like, not that the Astros couldn't eke out a win, but the whole thing just feels over. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that it's a bunch of ex-Met and Yankee players on the pitching staff. So we're just watching all of our exes just, look to go win a World Series.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting series. By the way, Jordan Montgomery is just making us, embarrassing us right now. Just,
the way what do you in Game 1 was just outrageous. And, I can see where Nick is coming from with my gut is also my gut's telling me that it's over as well, but I got to remember these are the Astros. They were down 0-2 to the Nationals in 2019 and proceeded to win the next 3 games in that World Series. Now, of course, they lost that World Series, but if there's any team that can climb out of an 0-2 hole, it is the Astros. So,
and to be fair, it's not like these games aren't. It's not like the Rangers are blowing them out. They're all pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, and there's so many things that could happen. But yeah, what you have to remember about baseball is that as a sport, teams and players tend to be very streaky. So it's really more about teams getting hot at the right time. Who wins the World Series is not always who was the best the whole season. That's usually not how it works. So the Rangers right now seem to be hot at the right time. And there's not really much you could do about that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this series, it just seems like the Houston bats. It looks like the bats because the pitching is kind of neck and neck. The bats are just not waking up at the right time. Also, the base running blunder by Jose Altuve, missing second base on the return back.
Yeah, I was a little confused. Yeah, I mean, it's these base running blunders that, look, I don't care about who wins these games, but if you're an Astros fan, that's got to kill you.
Yeah, that's a rare mental mistake from Altuve. You don't really see him make those kinds of mistakes, especially for a veteran like him who's been in the game for a long time. He kind of misread that ball off the bat of I think it was Bregman who hit that. Yeah, Bregman hit that to the warning track. And Altuve should know his field pretty well. He should be able to judge whether or not this ball is either going to drop, hit the wall, or the fielder catches it. He definitely ventured way too far up over second base. And it was just a rare mental mistake from Altuve, and that really was once he made that, it was basically over for the Astros in Game 1.
I mean, what makes that even worse, that's your home ballpark. Like that you have to know in your home ballpark, like, hey, like I know all the nooks and crannies. And by the way, that ballpark, and I'm sure I don't know who's been there. I've been there. I've been to that ballpark, and you have to know like all the nooks and crannies that go through that ballpark, especially left center and center field. I mean, you got to know. So
yeah, it's a very challenging outfield to play. But when you're playing 81 games there on a yearly basis, you should have an advantage of over reading where the ball is going to end up. And that was a huge play in that game, especially since Chapman was on the mound for the Rangers, and he was kind of struggling a little bit with his command prior to that hit by Bregman. Once that double play was completed, it definitely allowed Chapman to settle down and finish the inning unscathed. And then Leclerc came on for the ninth to give the Rangers the win.
And Chapman looks a little like out of sorts. Like I think the Yankees did the right thing by getting far, far away from him eventually. But like I don't know, he looks kind of lost out on the mound, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. It does seem like that. Yeah, he doesn't seem. He seems to be a little bit of a shell of his former self.
I mean, he's still throwing 100 somehow. I don't know if he's getting a little help to throw that 100, but I don't know. I think they're fine. I think they're going to win this series. Houston is just the big shock to me because what is it? 7 straight years they've made it to the LCS, and everyone just thinks it's an automatic lock that they're going to make the World Series basically every year.
They're not banging on the garbage cans anymore.
You beat me to that joke. I was actually going to say that, but
I mean, it's not a good joke. It's very old.
I know, but everyone is saying like, oh well, they're missing the garbage cans, or Jose Altuve is missing whatever he had under his jersey because he basically told everybody don't rip his jersey off as he ran towards home plate. But I don't know. I'm just shocked the way Houston is playing and the way like everyone just said, oh, they're gonna dispose of the Rangers, but no one is disposing of the Rangers, which is kind of a shock to me considering that they were not really a favorite to go this far, right?
No. I mean, people expected them to be better with the offseason moves that they made, especially bringing in guys like Seager to help bolster their offense. But I mean, the Astros have not gotten the big hit when they needed to at the biggest time. Plus, Framber Valdez really struggled in Game 2, and he put the Astros immediately in a 4-0 hole. And he also made a huge error during that start as well. And the Astros it was just too big of a hole for the Astros to climb out of. And the Rangers, if there's one thing that we learned from the Rangers this postseason and really this season in general, is if you give them an opportunity, they will take advantage of that. We saw that in the wild card series against Tampa, where the Rays just juggled the ball and fumbled the ball on defense, and the Rangers took advantage of those miscues, and they took that advantage again of Valdez's miscue in Game 2 that helped them extend their lead. So yeah, the Rangers are doing the right things, taking advantage of any opportunities that they've been given. Too many times that we've seen in the past when it comes to playing against the Astros take advantage of that. If you give the Astros an opening, they'll take advantage and they'll jump out to a lead. But right now, it's the Astros who are giving the Rangers advantages in this series.
By the way, I want to talk about one guy who I didn't think we were going to talk about, also another Yankee, former Yankee at some point. Nathan Eovaldi, 3-0. Nathan Eovaldi, 3-0 with an ERA of 2.29. 24 strikeouts in 3 appearances in the 2023 postseason. This guy's kind of like rediscovered his career. Like, and he's really good postseason pitcher too, believe it or not.
Yeah, it sounds like like on the Yankees, he was okay. Like at best, he was okay. It sounds like a Mets thing. Like it's very characteristic of players that like were once on the Mets and then they leave the Mets and they're like amazing. I mean, there's so many like Carlos Gomez, Justin Turner, and Nolan Ryan, like so many like players that were like at best average on the Mets, and then they leave and they're amazing. Yeah, I mean, some pitchers are just better in the postseason.
And that's a good point.
Not as good in the regular season for whatever reason. And he seems to be hot right now. But I mean, like what I'll say about this series is that a lot of it is about seems to be about mental errors and base running mistakes and things like that. I wouldn't say it seems like the Rangers are so good. And I'm not saying that pattern is likely going to change quickly, but it's not like the Rangers seem to be so much better in terms of like their hitting or their pitching. It's just right now they're doing it better. But the other thing is, I don't know how much home field matters, but those 2 games the Astros lost were at home. So now they have to go to the Rangers and make up that 2-0 deficit.
I think the Rangers are one of the better home teams in baseball also, just from that standpoint. They play much better at home.
Yeah, they probably are. But like I don't think it's the same thing as like when the Mets played the Royals in the World Series. Like the Royals were just like the Mets were just outmatched that series. And I'm not trying to make this about the Mets, but you get the point. Like the Royals, like they just did it. Like they were an amazing batting average team, and the Mets really just couldn't keep up. I don't see that type of asymmetry in this series. But it's just that the Rangers are too far out ahead. I just don't think the Astros are going to be able to come back.
By the way, the Rangers this season were 50-31 at home this season. So clearly a home field advantage going back to Arlington.
But it's going to be an interesting game 3 because they got Max Scherzer going for them. And we don't know how he's going to perform against Houston. If there was any time for the Astros to get back into this series, this is it. You got to attack Scherzer tonight.
He's a massive wild card. And by the way, something that still bugs me with Scherzer is the celebration that he had in the locker room after the game when they won the series. And he's dumping beer and everything over everybody. I'm like, dude, you just showed up here. Why are you having a celebration like you've been here all year? Like,
I don't agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm a Met fan. I'm a Met fan, and I do not like. I don't know. Like, I take no pleasure in Scherzer potentially winning a World Series. But look, if your team wins and the team is celebrating, it doesn't matter if you had anything to do with it. I think you can still celebrate because that's what sports is all about. Like, that would be like saying. Like that would be like telling, like I don't know, say a football team wins a Super Bowl and telling like a random special teams player not to celebrate with the team.
Yeah, but you don't see like those types of moves in the NFL that you would in MLB.
You do. I mean, well, you would if you knew who they were. I mean, Scherzer would probably celebrate like that if he was unknown. But if he was an unknown player, the camera wouldn't really be showing it.
I guess the celebration got a little more attention to it because obviously there was an FS1 camera.
And by the way, I have every reason to feel the way you do because I'm a Met fan, and I'm disgusted with how bad Scherzer was on the team. But it's like, I don't know, man. It's like you win as a team and lose as a team. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not an individual sport, and it really doesn't matter how bad you are. When you win, you still celebrate the same. Like,
no, I get that, but at the same time, it's not like he was there all season and he did. Yeah. Is my point. It's not
like he went through it with the rest of the players, obviously. But I still can't get mad at him for that because I don't know. Celebratory occasions are things that really people don't really think those through and think, what did I have to do with it? Do I deserve to celebrate? It's just a feeling, like people just go out there, especially in sports. It's a feeling. Like you just say, oh, I'm happy about this. I'm just going to go celebrate. That's everybody's reaction.
This would be more of a Hank question because he would ask this odd question I'm going to ask, or not question, but statement. I think the random guys that receive rings when they end up on a team because they showed up there randomly and like, do we count those rings for those players if they randomly showed up on a team and they just happened to be there?
Well, I mean, yeah, they have rings. I wouldn't say they had anything to do with it necessarily.
But they're going to walk around and say the same thing. Oh, I'm a World Series winner.
Well, here's the thing. Not only do random players get it, employees get it. I mean, Marv Albert has championship rings.
It's not the same, though. The players get what they call the diamond encrusted ring.
Oh, right. So it's technically different.
Yeah, the broadcasting team, like they get the rings, but it's not what the players get.
Right.
It's not even that it's authentic. It's just that it's not like the expensive ring.
The thing is, I would argue in baseball, at least, like winning a World Series is not really an individual accomplishment in any way. It's like nobody argues a baseball player's legacy based on World Series wins. I mean, nobody makes that argument because it just depends on what team you're on. and you could be a great player. And I mean, look at Ohtani. He's probably the best player in baseball. Hasn't made the playoffs. I mean, it's only quarterbacks and basketball players do we attribute team success to individual accomplishment. So, you could kind of say the same thing about anybody on a World Series team, unless they had a really crucial, unless they had a really crucial impact on winning the World Series. And even that, he probably doesn't have as big of an impact as you think he did. Like Mookie Wilson gets so much credit for getting the game-winning error in the '86 World Series. It's like, well, it wouldn't have been any different if Bill Buckner had just gotten his glove on the ground. You know what I mean? It just happened to go through his legs.
Well, I'll give you one example, and then this will actually lead into the transition of the other series. I got a lot of flack on this show last week, Ryan especially. I don't know if you saw the clip where I was talking to Hank about Trout and Harper and the comparison and what was going on. And I came out and I said that I think Bryce Harper is now the better player over Mike Trout in that debate. And the reason I say it is Harper has made more runs. Trout, I think, has been, to 3 total playoff games, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, he only been in the playoffs once in 2014, and it was 3 and done, basically.
They got swept by the Rangers, I think, right?
No, the Tigers.
Or Tigers? Couldn't remember. It was someone over there.
Wait. No, Royals. I'm sorry, Royals.
Or Royals. One of those yellow teams.
Yeah.
And basically, that was it. You haven't heard from him in the playoffs since. Mm-hmm. And he's been paid like a massive all-star. And he has done nothing. And he's had players. I don't know if you count Pujols with him over there at the Angels, but he's had plenty of opportunities, and they just don't go to the playoffs. Now, as Hank would say, Artie Moreno belongs in jail. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I got flack basically telling me I don't know baseball, which could be
I don't think your argument is that crazy. I agree with your conclusion, although not exactly for the same reasons. I mean, this year Harper did have a better year than Trout. I don't think that's even arguable.
Well, Trout was hurt also.
Trout was hurt, obviously. I mean, I don't think it. I mean, it's hard to say because Trout never really goes to the playoffs. So
that's the point, right?
How good do you know? How good is he going to be in the playoffs? We don't really know.
I will say this. I mean, Trout, naturally baseball-wise, I think Trout has more natural talent and skill than Bryce Harper does as a
right. If I were who I would rather have the Mets get, and this has nothing to do with bias against Bryce Harper, I would rather them get Trout if I were to have a choice.
Well, even with the injuries?
Well, I think he's a better player overall.
Actually, I should be careful because they both have had massive amounts of injuries and massive amount of games.
But Harper has played more over the past couple of years than Trout has, and Harper has definitely shown his value in that contract much more than Trout has. Now, granted, obviously the roster construction also plays a big part in that. The Phillies are a better constructed team than the Angels, but still, with the way that things have gone the past couple of years, you can't deny that Harper's been a better player over the past 2 or 3 seasons than Trout.
Yeah, I agree. Although I'll have to say, I mean, part of the reason you can argue that Trout hasn't been worth the money is because of how the Angels constructed everything around him. A player is only going to be worth the contract that he's given if the other pieces are in place, at least in baseball. I mean, you could have an amazing pitch, like Ohtani, for instance. Not to bring him up again, but I mean, he's the best player in baseball. He is like a myth almost, and they can't even make the playoffs with Ohtani. Everything else has to be in place.
Right.
It's a team effort to win the World Series. If you want to win the World Series, it's not just you're not going to win with 1 or 2 guys. You got to get a lot of backup and support around that roster.
Right.
And the Angels do not have that.
And that's what's crazy. So I'm looking at the comments because I just decided to scroll back because people destroyed me. Someone wrote, I don't know why they would say, not everyone needs a podcast. Maybe he should learn baseball first. The Angels have failed Touhey and Trout, not the other way around. Now,
that's how you know you've made it, when somebody says you shouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean they failed Ohtani first? Trout has been there for the long haul and hasn't won anything. So that's a dumb argument. I mean, Trout had plenty of chances for the Angels to go to the playoffs, and they just didn't.
Right. I mean, I think the Angels failed him more than he failed the Angels, I would argue. But I don't know. I'm not emotionally invested in West Coast baseball.
Right.
I mean, don't even watch the games. I mean,
and I've always
I haven't watched an Angels game in at least 2 years, and that's because I worked at the MLB and I was paid to watch the games. So,
but like the argument they make, because I responded back and I said Trout was a paid star money and was supposed to lead that team and has nothing to show for it. Way before Touhey showed up, but I don't know. And then someone responded, Washington won after Harper left. Well, I don't know. That's a dumb argument, too, to say a team's going to win after they left, because you can't determine. That's a fallacy of a predetermined outcome.
Well, you have to, you would have to play the counterfactual with that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that argument only works with basketball players. And when I say basketball players, like star basketball players and quarterbacks. That's the only time it would really work. Like, the Cavs falling apart after LeBron left is a really good argument that LeBron was very important to the team. But if, like, J.R. Smith leaves, for instance, and then the Cavs win, that didn't happen. But just for instance, that's
no one would care. No one would care. I mean, LeBron was the it factor, which is what you're talking about in basketball. When he left Cleveland to go to Miami, they won 2 titles. I mean, or when he went to Cleveland and won a title again. I mean,
baseball is this weird phenomenon where an individual doesn't have that much impact on a team, but as fans, we celebrate individual accomplishments a lot, like more than we do in other sports. So it's this weird sort of phenomenon with we really do care a lot about these individual players.
It's a good point, and
it's now a weird cultural sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have much more individual away from baseball than you do. Baseball's more the team sport. But let's transition over into the Phillies series. I mean, that offense just looks dangerous in every way, shape, or form. Kyle Schwarber had 2 more home runs the other night. That offense just looks like it's clicking on all cylinders, Ryan.
Yeah, the Phillies are just manhandling, or what would Hank say? Was it boat racing? Or
boat race, yes.
Yeah, the Phillies right now are just boat racing the Diamondbacks, right? And the Diamondbacks just right now they look like they just have no business being there. And the Phillies obviously were the clear favorite coming into this series, and they're showing why. And playing at that ballpark just gives them that much more energy and motivation to hit. They feed off that crowd, and they've shown it. I mean, I think. Well, in game 1, obviously, you had Schwarber, Harper, and Castellanos go deep. Game 2, Schwarber went deep twice, like you mentioned. Turner hit a bomb last night. I think somebody else hit a home run, if I'm not mistaken. I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
I can look that up, but I don't remember.
But regardless, it's home run derby for the Phillies. They're just killing every single pitcher the Diamondbacks threw out there. Gallen wasn't good in game 1. Kelly got crushed last night. And it's just been all Phillies from the first inning in game 1 to the end of game 2. And I know I've been hard on him. I know I've criticized him because I can't stand his style of play, but it was only a matter of time before Kyle Schwarber hit home runs in the postseason. And like I said, I can't stand the way he plays baseball with his low batting average and countless strikeouts. But when it comes time for postseason, you know he's going to hit a home run.
You mean wait a minute. You mean the singles to the home run ratio, Ryan, or no?
He's kind of like Alonso if he was on a winning team.
That's a good point.
That's basically what Schwarber is. But I mean, sometimes it's like having a low batting average with when hitting a lot of home runs can be useful if you hit the home runs at the right time.
Well, he does. I will give him that.
And that's
fair. In this case, it's like they ended up winning 10-0. I don't know how much those home runs would have, but it was something. It was something, and it was in the right game.
Like I said, he comes up clutch. He is a postseason performer. He hits a home run in almost every single postseason that he takes part in. It doesn't matter who it's against. It doesn't matter who he's playing for. He will hit a home run. I just feel like he could be so much better, though, if he would just cut down on his strikeouts and stop trying to hit a home run. But this is a player who he is. This is who he is.
Here's the thing. Batting averages have progressively gotten lower and home run rates have progressively gotten higher.
I'm aware.
In not a lot of time. It really is. I mean, how many players hit above 300 now?
None. Really?
Almost nobody. I mean,
maybe
very
10
few.
or 15 players.
And most of the players that do hit above 300, most of them do not hit a lot of home runs.
And that doesn't get them the contract either. Like all these teams are looking at going yard. I mean, the Aaron Judge contract, obviously he was hurt, but look at the year coming off 62, breaking the record. I mean,
occasionally you have like a really good half of the season, like Judge had like 6 years ago.
Yeah,
but then the second half, his batting average was horrible.
And but that's part of the problem, though. Like, and that's why the Yankees say, and not that we're talking about them yet, but basically the Yankees say, "Oh, we're just going to run it back," because they just expect Judge to hit 60+ home runs again, and everything's going to go all dandy again. But that's really not how it works. But looking at the Kyle Schwarber stats, like you said, 219 batting average. No one's really looking at that, though. 7 hits, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs, 5 runs scored in 8 games. 2023 postseason. This guy's going to be the MVP if they win the World Series. That's just plain and simple how it's going to be.
Not Nick Castellanos.
Castellanos has had that.
He's hit 5 home runs in the last 2 weeks.
I mean, right, but I think Schwarber's just like the veteran experience lead of this team. Like,
yeah, I mean, the thing is that my takeaway from this game is that like the Phillies crushed the Diamondbacks. Is Merrill Kelly the 1 or 2?
2.
The 2.
Okay, so they destroyed their 2 pitcher. What does that tell you? Like, I don't know. This series feels more over than the Rangers Astros series.
I agree. Totally.
Like to me, it's like I said before, that series, those 2 teams are at least comparable. In this case, it seems outmatched. Like they're just outmatched. Merrill Kelly is the number 2 pitcher, and they still lost 10-0. Like,
that's a good point. Also, I think we got to give credit to Nola too for pitching spectacular.
Oh, yeah. He pitched phenomenal in Game 5, and he pitched phenomenal in the division series, and he's carrying it over here in the LCS. And I think, based on from what I'm seeing from the Diamondbacks, I think they may just be out of gas. They may have just used up all of their energy to beat the Brewers and the Dodgers. Now, obviously, that's a pretty big accomplishment for an 84-win team to defeat 2 division winners in the playoffs. But they just look like they have used up all the offense that they had and all the pitching that they had in those 2 series. Now, it's still not over, obviously. They still have 2 more games. But based on the way the series is going, I don't think the Diamondbacks have a chance.
And I don't think home field is really going to matter to Philly. I think Philly's just on fire, like one of those teams. Like, also, if I'm not mistaken, Philly's playing old-fashioned baseball with their starters. Like, they're basically starting 2 starters in all their series, essentially, right? I mean, like, that's how they were. Like, they're stretching it out, basically, so that they can go every 3-4 days with Nola and who else they were using in the series. But
they're using a 4. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
I thought they were using 2 pitchers, but
yeah, they're just using a few pitchers. I mean, another big thing here though is like the bullpen. I mean, the Diamondbacks bullpen wasn't good either.
It's not good.
I mean, you don't have to have an amazing bullpen, but at least some guys that can hold it together. And I mean, like I know this from like as a Met fan. Like there have been so many times when DeGrom pitches an amazing game and then the bullpen blows it for him.
Yeah, I mean, well. But DeGrom just had one of those years where he had to make his own offense.
I mean, it was like, sometimes like the Mets also wouldn't score runs, obviously. Although, I mean, you could look if you're a playoff team, you could score runs. But I mean, if your bullpen falls apart, and the Diamondbacks don't seem to have a very capable bullpen,
right? And also, Nola, I think, is earning himself a contract. He's a free agent. People forget going into the offseason. Like, he's going to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, especially now. I mean, he has the numbers for it.
Look out for the Dodgers to make an offer for them because they really could use some pitching. I think.
Like, to me, I think the most underrated part of a starting pitcher is his ability to stay in the game for a long time.
I don't think they should have pulled him either. I think they should have let him go one more inning.
I don't know. You don't want to risk it. But I mean, like the durability, like a lot of pitchers, like it's hard to get past 5 innings now.
Well, see, that's the problem. And Ryan, you might know this better with Hank because you've talked about this all the time. I hate that they go to the stats, the book, where it says first time through the lineup, you're this, and second time through the lineup. Like, what happened to the days where, and then this is going to sound very old manish, but when Bobby Cox was managing the Braves, and he would just go by gut and by feel and just say, leave the pitcher in and let him pitch.
Are long gone. They're long gone. And I think, and it's been documented, I think, around the league too, that most starting pitchers, when they get through to the order for the third time, they start to fatigue, and the opposition starts to figure them out just a little bit. It depends on who it is, obviously.
Yeah, but Nola was pitching so well, though. Why would you take him out?
Yeah, I don't think they needed to.
They did not need to. They could have let Nola go more. It's just the way that they go about it. I mean, they also have an off day today. Today is the off day before they go to Phoenix. So they may want to try. So, if this series, even though I don't see it, if this series gets back to Philly for a game 6, maybe they would want to rest Nola just a little bit more, especially since the game was already out of reach by the 5th inning anyways. So it's just the way that it is. I'm not a fan of it either. I don't like it. I prefer managers and coaches manage the game based on what's going on by what they're seeing with their own 2 eyes and their gut instincts. It's becoming less and less frequent nowadays. You're getting more interference from the front office and the analytics departments. And yeah. Well,
to be fair, it is more taxing on pitchers now to throw longer.
Oh, I understand.
I mean, they throw much harder. They're more built than they used to be. Realistically, injury risks are just higher now. So obviously, it's not going to be the same. That's probably part of the reason why some teams start with an opener.
Oh yeah, I understand.
I mean, like it's just different, and if guys just pitch like 8-9 innings all the time, they're going to get injured a lot more. Like, it's not a big enough problem now. Like, it just makes a certain amount. Like, remember when Johan Santana pitched that no-hitter for the Mets, the first ever? Don't forget, like, Johan Santana never recovered from that. Like, he was just...
His arm fell off, basically, after that.
Like his career was over.
By the way, I hate to be the downer, but I don't know if that was officially a no-hitter, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I remember that.
Like, if it happened now...
A fun fact.
No, yeah, go ahead.
This is just a fun fact. I actually saw I was in San Francisco in 2017 with my family, getting on a boat to see Alcatraz. Johan Santana was on that boat.
Wait, what?
I saw Johan Santana on a boat with his family going to Alcatraz. I was on vacation with my family. We were in California in June of 2017. I recognized him. Pretty sure I was one of only a few people who actually recognized him, but I remember that Stinko Teague anywhere I go.
Did you say hi?
I did not say hi.
Oh,
how did you know you were the only one who recognized him?
Oh, it was me. I pointed him.
Somebody else on that boat that said I was the only one that recognized him.
I'm sure other people. I'm sure there was maybe another baseball fan or two who recognized him. He had shades on, but I just pointed him out to my brother. I'm like, "Is that Johan Santana?" Because it didn't seem real that a former Major League Baseball player who threw a no-hitter would be in all places Alcatraz at the same exact time that I'm there. But yeah, he was there.
But the other point I just wanted to make about
just wanted to share that quick little story
with the whole stats and information and pulling pitchers. Yet now you have Harvard and Princeton nerds in the front office who are going through and calculating all the numbers to say, pull the pitcher out, leave the pitcher in. Like,
the problem with all this analytic stuff is that it doesn't take into account individual nuance. Like you can't just mathematically determine what pitchers like.
I agree.
Like it's just sports is beyond that. Like it's just. I mean, the analytics departments there's something to do with it. Like, but that doesn't take into account any individual characteristics. Like
that's like
medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and I was
having analytics for medicine. Like everybody's body is different. It's the same thing.
Yes. Agreed. And by the way, that's like the NBA where they pull out the horrible free throw shooters down the line, like Shaq. Right. Shaq is the perfect example. All right, we got to pull Shaq out of the last 2 minutes of the game because they can hack a Shaq at the final after the final 2 minutes. So, like, all right, he's useless to me. I can't put him in. It's the same thing.
Exactly. But I mean, that's a very drastic example. Like it's very obvious who the bad free throw shooters are. Like, but
I'm just tired. Like some of these guys, and I was looking this up. Some of these guys, the Princeton, Harvard guys who are doing the math, like some of them are being paid like $150,000, $200,000 a year.
Yeah, like to do
to sit in the front office. They don't know sports, and they don't know sports. They're there to do numbers calculations. It's not like they even like baseball.
Yeah, so it's crazy how many professional useless people exist. And that's not even that bad compared to some other jobs that people have.
I think what he means, Ryan, is that basically it's a job that's really not needed. Like, it's just one of those things where they just find smart people and just say, do the numbers for me because I'm too lazy to do it myself.
Right. And you know what? I think dumb people can do jobs pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, it really just depends on the job. You don't have to be smart to do a good job. You just have to know how to do that job.
You have to know what you're doing. Hey,
a baseball manager doesn't have to be smart. They just have to be smart in regards to baseball. They can be stupid in regards to everything else.
I mean, hey, I worked in radio for 4 years. Not to say I was the smartest person in the world, but at least I knew how to push the buttons and produce a show.
Yeah, not everybody in radio is smart. I know that.
That's a fact. But I don't know. I think this Philly series is over. I think the Rangers. I think both those series are over. I think Houston looks kind of depleted. Like, they don't want to compete.
I will give the Astros at least one game in Texas. I don't think they'll get swept. I'll give them at least one game, either game 3 or game 4. I don't see them getting swept.
So you think it goes back to Houston then?
No, I think they'll get at least one game. So I think
it will go back to Houston.
Oh no.
Go back to Houston. Do I have it wrong?
I'm saying at least one game for the Astros. So at the very max, for me, this series will go to at least 5 games. But yeah, okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it went back to Houston. But yeah, I definitely think that the Astros are due for a win at least one of these next 2 games.
All right, let's move. Yeah. Oh, you have something else, Nick?
No. I'm just curious. I would like to see the viewership in these games. Like, how popular are these games?
I thought I saw a number. I don't have it right now.
Interesting to me.
I don't think the ratings are great this year, to be honest.
They're not.
I mean, it depends on the markets. Like, baseball's pretty big in Philly. I don't know how it is in Texas. I can't imagine baseball's that big in Arizona, but it's probably bigger now than it was 2 years ago.
I'm sure Texas ratings are pretty big with both teams being in the LCS.
Both teams, but my point is, I know in New York, baseball is huge. In Boston, baseball is huge. I don't know how big baseball is in Texas because I'm not familiar with that state.
I would say Philly's getting a bump just because they have the Eagles who are playing good. Well, not now, but they're playing good football. And now you have the Phillies. You have Philadelphia sports is booming right now, so that's probably helping.
Which nobody wants outside of that city.
That's a good point. I'll give you that. But I don't know. We'll see how the series go. Right now,
I would not want to be in Atlantic City right now.
No, not right now. I wouldn't.
I never want to go to Atlantic City.
No. Atlantic City is fun. It's just that there's a lot of Philly sports fans there.
There is a lot.
A lot, because it's not too far from Philly.
No, I know. I've been there.
And there's not that much to do in Philly. So
there's not a lot to do in Atlantic City sometimes either.
I'm not a fan of Atlantic City.
Well, Atlantic City, it's great if you gamble.
Yes.
I only do slots. I'm afraid of tables.
Yeah, I mean, if you play table games, it's a good place to go. When it comes to betting on sports, I bet on sports anyway. It's not a special occasion. It's just harder if I do it. Why would I go to a sports book, get a paper, and then hand it into a clerk, and then they give me the money when I could just do it on an app?
That's why we have our phones. We have our apps.
I don't really care about that.
And actually, ironically, well, do I want to say it now? In a couple of weeks, we're going to be working with a gambling app. I'll get more into that in a week or 2. But my point is, what did you say?
Your tease.
a little tease there. But my point is that, I don't know. I think these series are pretty much over. But we'll get into that. All right, let's move.
I'm still going to watch, though.
Yeah, of course. We're all going to watch. Let's move on to some other news. The San Francisco Giants formally interviewed assistant coach Alyssa Nakken for their manager role. First female coach in Major League Baseball. Let me clarify that because there's been other interviews in other sports to be interviewed. And she's on the staff already as an assistant coach. So it's not like they're reaching out and making doing this for news headlines.
Right.
But I don't know. This should be interesting, and it would be great for the sport if she was the manager.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. I mean, the truth is, my view is there's no reason a woman couldn't coach a baseball team, especially if you have like experience playing softball. It's probably not that much different. You could it's mostly the same kind of stuff. But it's interesting because it was never really like the thought of a woman manager just 5 years ago felt unfathomable.
I don't think it was 5 years ago was never going to happen.
No. Like if you were to tell me 5 years ago, 5 years from now, there might be a woman manager, I'd be like, "What? You're crazy."
It's a good point.
But the truth is, like I said, there's no reason she couldn't do it because, like in baseball at least, it's not that hard. Because I remember not too long ago, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago, the Bills actually had a woman coach, but like way down, and that was like a huge deal. And she was like some type of analyst, which I don't know what that is. And that was like a huge deal. But this is different because like she could be the top, she could be the manager. I mean, honestly, she can't be any worse than Mickey Callaway.
Jesus.
She can't be any worse than he was as a manager. So
that's I don't know about that one. Oh, good, right.
Well, he was pretty bad with the Mets.
It's definitely interesting too, and the women's roles in Major League Baseball have definitely grown considerably over the past couple of years, and we have seen women take over as managers in the minor leagues. The Yankees have a minor league manager, Rachel Balkovic, I think her last name is.
That's right.
She's the manager of the Tampa Tarpons, I believe, the Yankees single A affiliate. So I definitely think that there will be a female manager in the major leagues sooner rather than later, and it could be Alyssa. So this is big. It would be a very big moment. I could see it happening. I think she could get. I think the Giants. Personally, I think the Giants could hire her for the 2024 season. And
I mean, she's already there, so it's just a matter of do you want to make her the manager? I mean.
Yeah, I think you know what? I think the Giants will be the first ones to do it. I predict that she will.
What's her current role? Assistant coach?
She's in the dugout. She's an assistant coach already. So she's there. She's doing something. I have to look it up and see what her actual role is because I don't know exactly. But you know what? Let's make it happen. Come on. What's the worst we could do?
I mean, in general, I don't really care who. Like I said, I don't care about West Coast baseball because I'm not getting paid to care about West Coast baseball. But no, I think that's interesting. I mean, like, look, she can't be that much worse than Gabe Kapler.
Oh God, Gabe Kapler was a joke.
Like, so I don't see why not.
I still don't know how Kapler won 107 in 2021. I still don't know how.
And the Dodgers finished first, didn't they? Or
no, they finished second, one game behind them. They beat them in the playoffs.
Oh God, that's right. 107 and 106 wins. That. Oh my God, that's crazy. But I don't know. Would I like to see this happen? Yeah, I think this would be great. I think this would be. It would bring a light on something that we haven't seen. And I was making a comparison before we started. Becky Hammon becoming the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA. I mean, it's rare. It's I don't know. I mean,
and the truth is, Becky Hammon could probably coach a men's team.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was on Pop's staff for the Spurs.
Sure, I think she probably could. Like,
she was like a second or third assistant with Pop at one point. Like, she worked all the way up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it would be good. Of course, you're going to get the stigma from people who say, "Oh, well, there shouldn't be women in male sports." I mean, we got to get over that. Like, it's enough already.
Yeah, I think that's silly. I don't really care. I think that it should just matter how good she is.
If you can do the job, if you do the job,
you can do the job, and there's no reason a woman couldn't do it. It's not like you need some type of physical advantage to be a manager. Like, right. It's just knowing the game.
I mean, the one thing people are going to say, well, oh, you can't do locker room talk and all this nonsense. We got to get over that too. I mean, get over, like, stop.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure there's an easy way out of that. Like,
because I can't imagine half the BS that goes on in the locker rooms, especially. But I hope it happens. I think it'll be a good story, and hopefully that happens. Now, another one. Kim Ning out as GM after Marlins proposed hiring a new president. Now, this garnered a lot more attention because she actually's done a good job. She's done a really good job. First female GM in Major League Baseball. Not mistaken, didn't she work in the Yankee organization too?
Yes, she was under. Yes, she was. I think she was under Cashman's regime for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
So she's done a good job. They were a playoff team this year.
Yeah.
After all the mess they had to deal with Derek Jeter being there in the ownership and Bruce Sherman. By the way, Bruce Sherman has been a terrible owner, in my opinion. He just does not know how to run that organization, even though they keep winning games and somehow ending up in the playoffs. But this is bad, right? Like, I'm not the only one who thinks this is bad news for the Marlins.
It's a bad look, no doubt, for the Marlins. And they definitely, it just seems like they were just not grateful at all for the work that Kim, how do you pronounce it? Is it
Ning?
Ning.
Yeah.
I thought it was Ang.
Oh,
Ing.
is it Ang? It might be
No,
Ang.
Probably right. It might be Ing. I don't know.
Kim Ing.
All I know is that there's no vowel in the name. I don't
I'll
know
just call her by her
what's
first
going
name. I'm just going to call her Kim.
Yeah.
So let's call her Kim. But yeah, I think this is definitely a bad look for the Marlins organization, and because Kim, like you said, has done a very good job with this team. She led them to the postseason for the first time, if you count 2020, I guess, for the first time in 3 years. But they definitely had a very successful season. I mean, based on the Marlins standards, because the Marlins, they're almost always at the bottom of the National League East standings for the most part. But they had a good year. They had a hell of a season from Luis Ariz. He flirted with 400 a lot of the season. So and they also pulled that trade off with the Twins, and that paid off for both sides in their own way. And the Marlins definitely they had an exciting year. They had a good roster. Now, obviously, they were no match for the Phillies when it came time for the playoffs. Their pitching definitely struggled, but yeah, I mean, Kim had a good legacy with them, and the fact that they wanted to hire somebody above her in the organization, like, what more do you want for her to do? I mean, I understand that you want a world championship. That's what every team aspires to get, but like, I mean, it just seems to me it's ungrateful.
Well,
I mean, also, like, she can. It's not like nobody's going to hire her.
Like, oh no, she'll find a job. Trust me.
She'll go out on top of this, and she knows it.
Well, I'm already hearing rumors like Boston was one place I heard that could be a potential landing spot. Now, they definitely need a GM because I think they just parted ways with Bloom, right? I think so. They need a GM, and there's plenty of other teams that are going to be looking for GMs. What was interesting, though, also is there was a mutual option for 2024 for Kim, and the Marlins picked it up on their side, but she basically said, I'm out. And the reason reportedly was that they wanted to hire someone above her for decision-making. I don't understand it. I don't know what the logical reasoning is, but she's been doing a good job. You don't need anybody else.
Who is the person that they want to hire above her?
It just says they want to hire. It doesn't say who.
That's really bizarre that they would want. I mean, it's not even a person who's named.
Right, and it also says that and we hear this a lot in sports. Apparently, Bruce Sherman and her did not agree on the shape of the organization, which doesn't come. That's not surprising. First of all, Sherman's got to realize he's not a baseball guy. He's just an owner.
Yeah, owners don't always know. That's the problem. I mean, this is reminiscent of what happened when Brian Flores got fired.
I agree totally.
Like,
yes,
it seems very similar.
And first of all, Kim knows how to shape this organization. Why would you go to someone else who now you got to go outside the realm? I think from what I understood, they're taking an interim GM right now who was doing like all the stats and info for the whole organization, but I don't know. This makes no sense to me. Like, she had her footprint on the organization. I always find that bizarre.
I'm really glad this happened though, because that means the Mets could hire her.
See, that's Major League Baseball calling saying we want her. But I don't know. I don't know what to say here because again, the front office of this organization does not know how to operate.
Yeah, and what's bad for the Marlins is good for the Mets. So whatever it is, I'm cool with this. I don't know.
Well, the Mets better pounce on that before somebody else tries to snag her.
That would be a great. No, that actually would be a great move for them if they could pull that one off.
There are a lot of teams that could probably use a little bit of
jolt. Yeah.
What's that? Oh yeah.
A jolt. Yeah.
Yeah. I can think of the White Sox too. I remember
That's a
talking.
good one.
I was
Yeah,
thinking
I didn't even think about that.
like the White Sox. A lot of guys left that front office, and they're in a complete. They're in disarray right now with the way their season went and how their rebuild has just completely fell flat on their face. I think she could maybe give the White Sox a little bit of a jolt too, because they got a lot of work to do in that organization. They're just another one. There are a lot of other teams that could.
But the thing is, it's still not as big. They're still not as big of a disappointment as the Mets.
No, and by the way, I think that would be a great transition with Epler and his Phantom IL nonsense, which the guys talked about which we talked about last week. But
his what?
The Phantom IL, which they're saying that he resigned due to Phantom IL. I think there's more going on there, but we don't really know. But I don't know. Kim should still be with the Marlins organization, to be honest, and I don't blame her for walking away because. Again, it's a whole bunch of nonsense on the executive level for the Marlins, and that's why I think they will never win much because they can't get everything all together. They're dysfunctional, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. One more interesting story here, and when I shared it with the guys, they kind of laughed partially at it. Was Trevor May rips the Athletics owner while announcing retirement? I love this one because whenever former major leaguers announce their retirement, they always have to go after someone when they're announcing their retirement. Always.
Well, it depends. But yeah, I read this too. I read the quotes from May. They're pretty funny. And he's the voice of Oakland A's fans right now. Obviously, John Fisher has made it no secret that he wants nothing to do with keeping the A's in Oakland. He wants out any way, shape, or form. And if that means turning into Rachel Phelps and putting on the field every year, then so be it. So it's nice to hear some players, calling him out, calling him, this or that. I'll use the word coward to keep it, safe. But yeah, I thought it was funny, and I'm sure A's fans are praising May for speaking his mind and not being afraid of giving it to Fisher, because it's sad that next year could possibly be the final year for the A's in Oakland.
I would feel really bad for Oakland sports fans if they weren't also Warriors fans.
That's a good point. Well, wait a minute. They now lost 2 teams now.
That's true. 2 teams. I mean, if you're not a basketball fan and you're an Oakland sports fan, that sucks. Although,
but I'm talking about the Raiders also. But
yeah, I know. But I don't blame the owners for wanting to move out of Oakland. It's just not a good place to have a sports team.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's a very small city. You're better off in a lot of other cities, most likely.
Right, but Oakland had the traditional sports, traditions. I just think they didn't want to do the necessary work to get.
I blame both sides.
The point is that the owners, they're going to do what's best for them. Well, at least for how much money they're going to be able to make and all that. And it's I can't really get too mad at them for being I don't want to be in Oakland. It's just not the best place. I mean, there are teams there are probably worse sports cities out there that probably have worse markets. I mean, Tampa Bay is not a good sports city. But that's their attendance rates, at least in baseball, are really not good. But I mean, there must be something there must be a reason why Oakland teams are leaving. It's probably not the best place to have.
Well, the fact that in 2023 the fact that this year that the A's are still playing in that Coliseum.
O.co
It's
or whatever.
It's absolutely absurd that
that's also, you have to remember, it's all of these Oakland teams are competing with San Francisco teams. They also have San Francisco teams, and it's I mean, I don't know what the square mileage or the population is of those cities. I have a pretty good idea of what it is. And it's those 2 cities combined are nothing compared to, say, a big city like New York that has 2 teams.
Well, why do you think they had to put the jurisdiction issues between Oakland and San Francisco? Because if you remember, they were looking for a stadium closer, and I think it was either too close to where San Francisco was, and also they had the political issues with all the money and getting this built out. But I think this was a cop-out. I feel Rob Manfred wanted a team in Vegas. Every team every league now wants a team in Vegas.
But like it makes sense though. First of all, it makes sense to want a team in Vegas with sports gambling being legalized and normalized all over.
Yes.
And the fact that it's like a vacation spot. Like it is a really big deal to have a team in Vegas, and I think makes a lot of sense.
But
like,
the problem you're going to have is, are you going to have more tourist fans?
That's
but,
yeah.
Like,
I agree
is that necessarily bad for the teams though?
Right, but you're not going to have a fan base. You're going to have a lot of touristy fans.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure there are people. I mean, I don't like, to me, Vegas, like, because I've never like, to all of us, Vegas is just, we think of Vegas as the Strip,
right?
But it still is a city. People do live there.
Right, but would you really want to put up with a team for 81 games? Like, are you going to live there to see the Las Vegas A's?
No. Obviously, nobody's going to move there to watch there for sports. But it still is like, look, you have to remember the owners probably don't care that much about having the best fans. They just want like fans in the seats. You know what I mean? Like they're okay with a bunch of people on vacation going to see these games.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah.
It's a big deal now. The problem is that appeal is going to wear off.
Well, yeah, and by the way, you were right, partially, but I'll say one of the reasons that they're there is that's why they're there. I mean, that's the one clear reason. They want to be near the sports books. I wouldn't be surprised if the naming rights of the stadium is one of the gambling books, one of the sports books. I could see that happening.
It wouldn't shock me. But also, I think that it's precisely that reason that teams didn't want to be in Vegas.
Well, yes, but like first of all, I think the Raiders had a great transition to Vegas. I think they actually did it right. Now, I don't know if Major League Baseball will have that same effect, but
I don't know either. I mean, Bryce Harper, I think it was Harper who said it best. You know, when you think of A's, you think of Oakland. You know, they're synonymous with Oakland. You put them you relocate them to Vegas, like it just doesn't. Yeah, I mean, they'll become the Las Vegas A's, but like it doesn't feel like they're not a natural part of Las Vegas. I mean, the Oakland A's made Oakland for, I guess, what it was when it came to sports. The A's are you look at history, the A's are among the most successful franchises in all of baseball. They got 9 world championships.
Okay, so can you guess which team had the worst attendance in baseball this year?
I'd say Tampa.
Oakland?
It was Oakland.
Oh, was it Oakland?
Yeah, long shot. I mean, they had, on average, they had 10,275 people for every game. The next lowest was Miami, 14,355. That is a huge difference. I mean, and
they're a playoff team, Miami. I mean,
the thing is, Miami is not a good sports city. And I do think, let me rephrase that. It's a good sports city, but they don't have as good of fans as, say, New York or Boston.
I was going to say the Dolphins won a word with you.
Right. I'm not saying like their teams are good. That's not what I meant. Like
they're more New York sports fans in
but
Florida.
Like the fans aren't that good, is what I mean. Like,
well,
and part of the reason is because it's Miami. Like it's nice weather. There's a lot to do in New
especially
York,
in the summer when baseball is on.
New York, it's cold, and at some point it's like there's not as much to do. And also just culturally they're different. Like in New York, everybody's kind of huddled together and kind of rougher in a sense. In Miami, it's like the weather is real nice. Like, you go to the beach.
Well, also I would say you're accidentally, like when you're in New York, you're accidentally going to go to Madison Square Garden to see a Knicks game, or you're going to go to Yankee Stadium, like, because you want to check out both arenas or stadiums just when you're in town.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like the thing is, though, is that like my point, and Tampa Bay is the 4th lowest. Believe it or not, Kansas City is the 3rd lowest.
Wow,
in terms of attendance. Now, that's not the only thing that matters in terms of what owners care about, but it's definitely a really good indicator. And like I don't know, I can't get mad at an owner for wanting to move out of a city that has by far the worst attendance. Like it just makes some sense to me when he could probably get better attendance in Vegas.
I don't know about that, but
you put a lousy product on the field and you jack up the ticket prices. It's not necessarily surprising that the fans aren't coming out.
No, you know what they're going to do? Like I said, if they get
it could be his fault. It could be his fault. I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying like that is a pretty good indication of why he wants to move out of Oakland.
By the way, I didn't realize his parents actually found a gap. I just realized that. I didn't know where their money was from, but like apparently they found a gap. I know that does.
The thing that I want to point out is not just how bad the A's were, but like the A's were so bad that Domingo Germán, who was struggling with alcohol addiction, pitched a perfect game.
Yeah, that was bizarre. And I remember Hank going off on that too.
There's a good chance that he was drinking and pitched a perfect game. That's
wait. Hey, David Wells. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I mean, if he wasn't drinking, his body is probably severely wear down from the alcohol, which would affect you in professional sports a lot. And he was able to pitch a perfect game. That's pretty incredible.
By the way, the other thing I want to point out, the stadium conditions were terrible, considering the the away broadcast booth when the Mets were there. Like, they had to go relocate inside the stadium because there was a possum in the booth, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, and what was the other thing I heard? Oh, they said don't drink the water in the stadium either, because they said that it was dangerous.
I mean, like, what are we in a third world country? I mean, you got to have clean water.
Well, no, but that was reported. Like, they said don't drink the water inside the stadium because there was a problem with sewage or whatever.
Yeah, I've never experienced that. Although you could probably get bottled water pretty easily.
Well, no, they literally said don't drink the water at the stadium at all. That's what they said.
Not even bottled water?
Yeah, that's what they said. They said they were having issues. And I was like, that was messed up. Like,
no, water is one thing that most of us just take for granted that we always have access to. But if something like that happens, if you don't have access to clean water, that is a nightmare. You can't clean yourself. You can't drink anything.
You're in trouble if that happens.
You're coffee if you don't have clean water. Like, Jesus.
I don't know. The stadium had to be gone anyway. Like, that stadium was history. And another thing to what Ryan said before, I think part of what made tradition in Oakland was the Moneyball with the movie and all that stuff. And that theory, even though that people think that's just a movie, that was a real theory that they created, that Billy Beane created. I mean, like, but I don't know.
I don't know. A lot of people don't like Billy Beane.
I don't even know. I don't know. Is Billy Beane even in baseball anymore? I don't even know.
He's still there. His role is he just doesn't really keep a public face.
People don't give him credit, though.
If I saw Billy Beane in a grocery store, I would not recognize him.
I don't think anyone would.
Like, he's not. I mean, he's famous, but like, he's not like recognizable.
I mean, and one last thing I'll say: people forget, and they say it in the movie. He almost could have had the Red Sox GM job. People don't realize that.
Yeah, I remember. Like, look, I remember I was 14 when that movie came out. I saw it in theaters, and I remember they mentioned Chad Bradford. And
yes,
he throws funny.
Yes,
I remember that the most because he used to be a Met.
Right, it was him, and then David Justice, who was complaining.
He was a Yankee before he became in Oakland. That was Justice's final season in baseball.
And I remember in the movie, like, he was complaining that he had to pay for soda inside the clubhouse when he didn't have to do that at Yankee Stadium because Yankee players were entitled.
Yeah, I would complain about that too.
I like how he was trying. What my favorite part is when when Justice asks Scott Hatterberg, "What's your biggest fear?" "A ball coming at me." And he goes, "Seriously, what is it?" And he goes, "No, that's good."
That was such a great line. But I think that actually happened. Like, when they're in that war room and they're trying to say, "All right, get me Giambi because he walks." Like,
Jeremy
Giambi. Yes, but. Like, I think that's real. I think that actually happened. Like, I know they say, like, a lot of those movies are Hollywood. I think they actually did a lot of that stuff.
The attention to detail in that movie is amazing. You look at that scene where they're in the conference room and discussing free agents and constructing the team for next year. You look at the names on that board. Those are actual names of the players who were free agents at that time. They played very close attention to detail for that movie.
But let's just get back to this quickly because I know we went off on a tangent there. What do we think about the whole Trevor May thing, though? Are we surprised? Are we not surprised?
The thing with me that's telling with it is that here's a guy who also played on the Mets.
Yes.
And is like, this is the organization I have in. Like, that's pretty incredible if you could top the Mets like that. But also the fact that, like, since he's retiring, he can say whatever he wants. It's not like he has to, like, if he's not going to go to another team, he's not worried about who he's alienating.
Right. And like I said, I think
he can just go out with a bang.
I think, like I said, I think he's working for John Boy, I think, right now.
Yeah, I didn't know that, actually.
And I think he's doing his own podcast on the side as well. So when you're a former player, sponsors find you. You can do a podcast. Like it really doesn't
And I
matter.
think it's smart because sometimes players they just let themselves go after their careers, and they have a lot of money they can afford to most of the time. But it's just not a good way to live your life. You know what I mean? Like you got to have something to do for the rest of your life.
And if I'm not mistaken, like he's a Twitch guy also, like for video games and stuff. If I'm not mistaken,
I never got into that stuff.
I'm not either. But like I used to see him during the season, like on off days, he would be on Twitch playing video games with people, and I was like, I appreciate it, and I think that's great that he wants to be with the fans, but I don't know. I agree with you, Nick, that it's kind of funny that he chose the A's to.
Yeah, of all teams to rip. Like this is a guy who played on the Mets. I'm like,
I don't know. Was he on the team back when the Wilpons were the owners, or no? I don't think so. Right?
When did Steve Cohen take over? 2021.
2020, I think.
2020, yes.
Yeah, 2020. He might have been. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'm looking that up really quick. Let's see if I can find when he was with the Mets. I think it was a couple years, right? Oh no,
I think he was. He was on the team a couple of years, like 2 years ago.
2022.
He was not. Yeah, he was not. He was not.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't as far back as I thought. But I don't know. This is not a surprise. Fisher is probably the worst owner in Major League Baseball right now, up there with Artie Moreno. I don't know. Actually, let's play that debate. John Fisher, Artie Moreno. Which one?
Probably Fisher because he doesn't care about the team as much.
Yeah, I agree. But Artie Moreno's had his own fare of
Moreno's
BS.
no saint either. Moreno's no saint either.
But
I would say right now it's got to be Fisher. I mean, the A's are in a much worse position.
You think so?
I mean, they're way worse.
They're leaving.
They're leaving, yeah.
Yeah, they're not even staying. I mean, like, it just seems like he seems to be a much bigger failure. Which is, by the way, is a weird debate to have because everything in sports is who's at the top, and we're just
right.
That's the most.
The problem is it goes back to circling back way to the beginning that both these owners don't care about baseball. Really,
I mean that's common in every sport.
No, but I just meant in general. Like it's two guys. We picked the two guys that could give two you-know-whats about baseball. Yeah. It's pretty much an investment to them at this point.
Yeah, and it makes a certain amount of sense.
But are they really making any money? I mean, and the Angels are going to get dumped on, especially when Touhey leaves in free agency.
Or at least if they aren't making money, they would sell. I mean, like I don't believe that billionaire, even like really wealthy people, just throw money away like that. I think they still want to make money, especially if they don't care about baseball.
Look what happened with Loria. Look what happened with Loria with the Marlins. I mean, like, how much money did he make selling? I mean, I think he bought it for $200 million or something, and got like $3 billion out of it or something. Yeah. Like it's some ridiculous number.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. Like, I can't get in the mind of somebody who can own anything, especially a baseball team. Maybe a car. If you know a car, I could relate to you. Like,
well, maybe, but all right. I think that just about does it for this episode.
Yeah, we went a long time.
Yeah.
Follow the show on social media at HFTC ETB across all social media platforms. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network across all social media platforms. YouTube.com/ETB Network to find the video version of the show. Make sure if you want to listen on audio platforms, it's on all audio platforms as well. Acast, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts. It's on all platforms. You can find it. What else was I going to say? I put up all our socials. Those are scrolling across. You can also see it on the screen. Make sure you follow all of us. Nick will have a new show. We'll announce that probably in a week-ish, 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, probably about a week from now it'll debut.
Yeah, we're just waiting on the logo stuff. We should have that soon. Hopefully Hank will be back next week. Ryan, where will we be in the schedule by the time the next episode? Are we going to be talking World Series yet or no?
World Series should be starting towards the middle or the end of next week.
Oh, so good timing.
Yep.
So that just about does it for.
By our next episode, we should know who's in the World Series.
That's a good point. So hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, we'll be talking like Philly, Texas. Hopefully, even though I think the ratings will be awful if that's the World Series. But that just about does it. So for Nick DiMartino, for Ryan Touhey, I'm Nick Morgasen. Hopefully Hank will be back next week. And see everybody later.